Mackinac Island has an extraordinary and immense history. Countless lives have been lost on this soil, so it would only make sense that it would be haunted. In fact, Mackinac Island is one of the most haunted and sacred places in Michigan. And when it comes to Skull Cave, it earned its name and haunted reputation for a reason. Let's start from the beginning. Skull Cave is one of Mackinac Island's oldest geological formations. Basically, the cave was created 11,000 years ago when the stack of limestone was exposed, and waves washed into one side of it, causing the small cave to form. Mackinac Island has long been a burial location for the Anishinabek, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi Native Americans. It's common practice for them to bury their dead near water and their villages, and in autumn they have ceremonies in remembrance of them. These ceremonies are called Feasts of the Dead or Ghost Suppers. The Odawa and Chippewa Native Americans have worked with Mackinac State Historic Parks to basically protect the Native Americans and legally give them control and custody over their ancestors' remains that are on Mackinac Island and in Mackinac City. Mackinac Island is a special place for many Native people, and the burials of their ancestors greatly contribute to the history and sacred nature of the island. Not only are there 3 cemeteries on the island, Mackinac also contains countless Native American burials and burial sites. Some still being discovered, and some still yet to be found. On June 2, 1763, at Fort Michilimackinac, the Native Americans were playing a game similar to lacrosse, and the British watched as they normally did. These games were a pretty big event involving hundreds of Native men. But on this day, the game plan was different, and would lead to what would become known as the Massacre of Fort Michilimackinac. This attack was a part of a huge Native American movement called Pontiac's Rebellion. Named after the chief of the Odawa, Pontiac's Rebellion was a series of attacks on the British throughout Michigan, Ohio, and Illinois. On the island, the natives got along pretty well with the French, but when the French troops left and the British troops came, things went downhill. The British were basically untrustworthy jerks that treated the natives extremely poorly, so the natives decided to take a stand and start a revolution. And the Ojibwe, Odawa, Wyandot, and Potawatomi agreed to all attack their nearby forts. Even though the British commander was warned several times about this attack, he refused to listen. And during the game, the British didn't seem to think anything of the fact that the native women were all sitting in front of the fort gates, wrapped in thick blankets on that hot summer day. The British didn't have any clue that this game was only a distraction. The attack happened within seconds. The men purposely passed the ball near the women, causing them to run towards them, and the women opened their blankets that were filled with tomahawks and knives, handing them to the men, and their plan was executed flawlessly. The natives spared the French, and the French didn't step in to stop the attack. In fact, they encouraged the natives to get rid of the British. Alexander Henry was an English fur trader that lived on the island. He overheard the attack happening and ran to his window to witness the massacre. It wasn't safe for Alexander to stay in his home, and he had a hard time trying to find a safe place to hide out. And long story short, Alexander ended up getting captured by the Ojibwe, and he was owned by the chief of the Ojibwe. Luckily, Wawatam, the Odawa chief, came to Alexander's rescue. Wawatam intervened and took Alexander into his own lodge to keep him safe. A few days later, Alexander was threatened again, and Wawatam needed to take him to a place where no one would find him. So Wawatam took him to Skull Cave so he could hide out and sleep in there overnight. When Alexander woke up the next morning, he realized the entire floor that he had been sleeping on was covered in human bones and skulls. Skull Cave was used as a Native American burial site until the 1700s. And this was how Skull Cave got its name. Now when people visit the cave, they report seeing shadow figures and apparitions and feeling a strange presence or energy in the area.